Hi, this is Dave from Hector's Smokehouse. Welcome to the channel if you've not been here before, and welcome back if you've been here before. If you've not been before, please subscribe to the channel, and I hope you enjoy the video. What I'm going to do today is talk about a question that I get asked a lot. I get a lot of people direct messaging me on Facebook and on other platforms saying, what type of barbecue should I get? So what I want to do is I want to go through that question and talk about what type of barbecue to buy. Now, I'm not really going to talk about anything to do with gas. I'm going to be talking about solid fuel more than anything else. But I'm going to go through all the different types of barbecues. I've often been into barbecue stores, and you get a few barbecue stores that are really, really good, and people actually are interested in you and want to sell you the right thing. But in a lot of barbecue stores, they just want to sell you whatever they want to sell you. And they don't ask the right questions. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through the right questions to ask yourself, which will help you get to the answer. So whether you want a pellet grill, a Kamado, whether you want to get an offset, whether you want a Weber Kettle, whatever it is you want, I'm going to go through the questions you should ask yourself first before you actually decide what you're going to go and buy. So some of the questions that you should ask yourself first of all is, do you want to cook on gas or do you want to cook on solid fuel? Now this video is only going to talk about solid fuel anyway, so I'm not going to talk about gas. I stopped cooking on gas probably 4 years ago, so I'm not going to talk about actually cooking on gas. So the next question you need to really ask yourself is, what type of food do I want to cook? This is really important. Do I want to do hot and fast? Am I going to be doing grilling? So do I want to be able to do steaks, burgers, sausages, those type of things? Or am I going to be cooking low and slow? Do I want to be able to cook brisket? Do I want to be able to cook pulled pork? And do I want to be able to do ribs? Or do you want to do both? So depending on what your answer is to that question, you go down 3 different routes, depending on what type of barbecue you want to get. So it's a really important question, so we're going to explore that question. The next question you should ask yourself is, how many people am I cooking for? Now, this video is not really for anybody who's going to cater or do competitions or anything like this. This is for people who are cooking at home. So people who are going to be typically cooking for 2 people, maybe up to 6 to 8 people. So that's what I'm going to answer the question to with regards to the barbecues that I actually put forward at the end. It's going to be more for the home cook. The next question you really want to ask yourself is, how much do I want to spend? Do I want to spend less than $250? Do I want to spend between $250 and $500? Less than $1,000? Less than $2,500, or even less than $5,000. There is barbecues at all of those ranges. So you're going to ask yourself that question, how much do I actually want to spend? The next question is, what sort of a cook do I want to be? Do I want to be a lazy cook? Do I want to be able to get the barbecue to do most of the work, where I only have to feed it every 5 or 6 hours? Or am I happy to feed it every 30 minutes and be a busy cook? Do I want to have sleep or not have sleep if you're doing overnight cooks? Really, really important question, and that really determines which route you go down or the type of barbecue you're going to look for. So we'll start with the first question, and that's, what do you want to cook? And the first question is, do you just want to really do grilling? And if you want to do grilling, what type of grilling do you want to do? Do you want something that's going to cook on charcoal, briquettes, or wood? Do you want something that has direct and indirect zones, so it has 2 zone systems? Do you want a grill that can actually have different heights, so you're actually cooking at different heights when you're actually doing the barbecuing, so you can get really low to the coals or a long way off the coals? All of these questions are really important. You might want to ask whether I want a barbecue that's really well known, that has a really good accessory range. So some barbecues have great accessories that you can actually do more and more things with, where some entrepreneurial people have actually come up with different ideas and different cooking methods and added to them as an accessory. You may also want a barbecue that has got a really strong online presence, because the more people that are using that type of barbecue, the more information there is out there, the more recipes, the more how-to videos. Whereas if you get something that's more obscure, you're going to be more on your own. So you might want something that is well known and is well supported. So some of the possibilities, if you're just actually going to grill, is going to be things like the Weber Kettle, is going to be some sort of a Kamado. You may start off with a Chinese import Kamado, or there is things like a Primo or the Kamado Joe. Or if you've got a lot of money, you might want to buy a Komodo Kamado. So you've got to decide that those are probably some of the ones that you want to actually look at. So some of the possibilities that you might want to look into if you actually just want to get into grilling is going to be something like a Weber Kettle. A Weber Kettle is incredibly versatile, has a brilliant price point, has lots of support, lots of accessories, is a great starting point for doing any type of barbecuing. You may want something like a Kamado. Kamados range from Chinese import Kamados to things like the Big Green Egg, to a Primo or a Primo XL, a Kamado Joe, or you might want to go really expensive and go for a Komodo Kamado. There's also other types of grills like the PK grill, which is something that disappeared for a long time but has been around in the US for many, many years, I think since the 50s. So there's different types of grills you can get. So those are some of the examples of the types of grills you could get if you want to do grilling. So if you're looking for a barbecue that can mainly do smoking, you're looking for something that can run on briquettes, on wood, on charcoal, on any of those type of solid fuels that you're actually looking for. But as I say, I'm not going to look at the gas side of it. I'm not keen on the electric smokers where they've got the wooden pucks, or the gas smokers where you actually put wood chips into them. So my preference is to look for something that is either wood, briquette, charcoal, or pellets. If you're going to be doing low and slow, one of the things you really need is something that's going to be large enough to do a full pack of brisket. So that's going to mean typically something around 22 inches. I think when you go to about 18 inches for a barbecue, that's going to do full pack of briskets. It's too small and you end up cutting them down. So always look towards something where you can fit somewhere in the region of 20 to 22 inches into the barbecue. So some of the barbecues you could actually look for are things like the pit barrel cooker. The pit barrel cooker is at a fantastic price point. It's really, really easy to use. It's got no temperature control. You actually set the temperature with an opening, and that's it. You just leave it and the cooking is finished when it's finished. Really, really good barbecue. It can also run for probably 5 to 6 hours full of charcoal. So that means if you're doing a low and slow or a medium heat cook, something around about 275, 300, it can run to 5 or 6 hours before you actually need to refill it. I've used these a lot and they're absolutely fantastic barbecues. So really good price point, great place to start. Another type of low and slow barbecue could be something like a bullet smoker, something like a Pro Q or a Weber Smoky Mountain. Again, very simple to use, got a bit more temperature control on these, but they can run for 5 to 6 hours. I've actually seen a video where there's a modification to the charcoal basket where I've seen one of these run for 30 hours. So you can really sort of leave them and set them and forget them and not have to keep feeding them with any fuel or charcoal or briquettes. So they're a really good place to start as well for doing low and slow. Pellet cookers are another great place to start. And you can get lots of different brands now. And they're ranging a lot of different prices, so there's good price points on pellet cookers now. So you can get brands such as Yoda, Traeger, Louisiana Grills, Green Mountain Grills. So there's quite a few different brands. The great thing with pellet cookers is that you can actually set them and forget them. So as long as you've filled it up with the pellets, you set a temperature, say 225F, and then it cooks at that temperature all the way through using the pellets. So they're easy to use and they're set and forget. So that takes away a lot of mystery and it means that you're going to get good food coming out of them. However, the downside of pellet grills is that they're actually more expensive and also the pellets are quite expensive as well. But you can leave them cooking for around about 10 hours before you actually need to refill the pellets. Gravity fed smokers are another one that you can actually get for doing low and slow. So you can get brands such as Stump Smoker, Myron Mixon actually does one as well, and Pro Q do one. They're really simple to use. They're very well insulated, can cook for over 12 hours. Once you set the temperature, they hardly move. They're within 1 or 2 degrees F once you've actually set the temperature. You can dial up the actual smoke flavour, so you can turn it up and down depending on how many wood chunks you put into the actual smoking chamber. It can really change the way the actual meat tastes. Another great thing is they've got lots of real estate. So you can get these where they've got multiple shelves in there, so you can cook lots of different meats on different shelves at different levels. The only downside with that is they cannot do grilling at all. They've really got it around about a maximum temperature of around about 325F, and that's probably all you need to go with one of these actual gravity-fed smokers. Cabinet smokers such as the Humphreys or the Backwoods, again, are pretty easy to use, more or less set and forget, can cook for probably around about 5 or 6 hours, have a lot of real estate in there, but again, cannot do any type of grilling whatsoever, and they're relatively expensive compared to some of the other barbecues that I've actually talked about so far. Offset smokers are incredibly popular. brands in the US such as Yoda, Lang, Jambo Pits, and then in Australia you can get brands such as Silver Creek and Manhorn. Are really fantastic barbecues to work with and smokers to work with. They get great smoke flavour, but the problems with them is they take a lot of looking after. You're feeding pieces of wood into them probably every 30 to 40 minutes. So that means if you're doing an overnight cook, you've got to be constantly paying it attention and working with it. For me personally, this is a big, massively off-putting for me. I don't like the idea of not getting any sleep during the night, but a lot of the competition teams and caterers absolutely swear by these. And the quality of the meat that comes off them is unbelievably good, but it's just a lot of work. And for a decent one, they're quite expensive as well. Again, they don't do any grilling. Some of them have a grill plate on them, but it's not what they're actually set up for. So a fantastic barbecue, but very expensive and takes a lot of work. For me personally, that's too much. But as I say, I know a lot of people who swear by them and would use nothing else. The Weber Kettle can also do low and slow as well, but it's a lot of messing around. You'll look online and you'll see things such as the snake method. Because you've got a longer cook, it's very difficult to put enough charcoal in there. So you create things like the snake method where it takes longer for the actual briquettes to burn. So you can get a long cook out of a Weber Kettle. But then you've got to also move the meat around and change the direction of the meat. So there's a lot of faffing around. They can do it, no two ways about it, and they can produce fantastic results. But there's a lot of work involved. Also with the Kamados, they do really good low and slow as well. And they can cook for maybe 5 to 6 hours. Or if you've got something like a Komodo Kamado, the one I've got, I've had it cooking for over 15, 20 hours, just with charcoal in the bottom of it. So there's lots of choices for doing low and slow. So let's now talk about some of the barbecues that can actually do both types of cooking, hot and fast, doing the grilling, and the low and slow, the barbecuing. So you start off with a Weber Kettle, really versatile, absolutely fantastic for grilling, can do 2-zone grilling, can't really change the height on the grill, but it does fantastic grilling, and you can add lots of accessories to it. So things like the slow and sear can go onto there, you can add grill grates on. It is a great place to actually grill. We use them in competitions and have had some great success with a Weber Kettle. So they're awesome. They can also do low and slow, but as I said previously, a lot more messing around, takes a lot more work, but again can produce really good results if you're happy to actually take that time and to have that amount of extra work to do to actually create the low and slow. But they are fantastic for doing low and slow as well. Then you go on to something like the pit barrel cooker. Pit barrel cooker is brilliant for doing low and slow. We use ours all the time. You can hang a full brisket in there, you can hang 8 racks of ribs in there, and it does do some grilling. And you can buy accessories such as grill grates to it. But the grill area is a long way away from the actual charcoal. So you can't get the same type of heat that you can get in some of the other grilling barbecues. So it can be a little bit of a pain for doing that, but it can do it if you want it to do it. But it's at a fantastic price point, which is a really big plus for it. So brilliant for doing low and slow, but okay for doing grilling. Pellet grills, they are fantastic for low and slow. You just set them and forget them. Feed the pellets in, set the temperature you want, put the meat in, and then you're off and running. Don't need to touch it for another 10 to 12 hours. So it can last the whole cook without you having to do anything. All of the pellet grills profess to be able to do grilling. I've been incredibly disappointed with them. They can really mess up the bottom of the actual pit and the chamber. So it can be a really messy type of cook. It's a very limited area where you've got direct flame. So it's only a small firebox area that has that direct flame. So again, it can do hot and fast, but it's only okay. Low and slow, brilliant. Hot and fast, okay. Bullet smokers are really good for doing both. So with a bullet smoker, you can do the low and slow. It's got a water pan in there, so it keeps a lot of moisture within that area. So you can do low and slow. So you can do briskets and pulled pork. And because you can actually take sections out of it, you can drop the sections down, so it can do really good grilling as well. So a Smoky Mountain or a Pro Q are absolutely superb for doing both types of cooking. The only negative is the walls are a bit thin, so they're not well insulated. But overall, they can do low and slow and hot and fast really, really well. Kamados. I think Kamados are fantastic for doing both. Kamados are really good for doing hot and fast grilling. and they've got a decent surface area. They've got the heat directly underneath. If you get something like an oval or a Big Joe, you can end up with two different areas, an indirect and a direct area, so you've got two-zone cooking. Low and slow, they're absolutely brilliant. You put the deflector plate into them, and then you can do briskets, pulled pork. You can have different levels on there. They're well insulated as well. So I've actually got a Primo XL, which is really good, and I've also got a Komodo Kamado. I think these can do both sides of cooking really well, hot and fast and low and slow. The only problem is they're a bit more expensive, so they're starting to get into that middle to high price range. So once you've actually answered these questions, really it comes down to the price. And I'm looking at price in US dollars. And most of the people who watch my videos, 70% of the people are actually in the United States. So it really comes down to price. If you're looking for something that's less than $250, then you're really looking at something like a Weber. And they do an awesome job, can do both types of cooking. Around $250 to $500, you're looking at the Weber Smoky Mountain or the Pro Q, sort of a bullet smoker, or you're looking towards something like a pit barrel cooker as well. And again, both of those can do both types of cooking. At $500 to $1,000, then you're starting to look at some of the imported Chinese Kamados, which are pretty good, that you can actually use, or some of the lower end pellet grills, such as some of the GMG type pellet grills you're able to do for that sub $1,000 bracket. At $1,000 to $1,500, then you're starting to look at some of the different types of pellet grills. You can also look at things like the Primo XL, or some of the Kamado Joes. You can look at the bottom end Langs for an offset. So there's all different things you can get between $1,000 and $1,500. And then over $1,000, $1,500, then you're really starting to look at some of the more expensive offset cookers, some of the more expensive cabinet smokers, such as the gravity feds. And then you're also looking at things like the Komodo Kamado. So my recommendation for someone who's actually just starting out in barbecuing, first thing I do is always start with a Weber Kettle. You can't go wrong. They can do hot and fast really well. You can do low and slow. You can add different accessories to it. So it can do everything you want to do to start with. Maybe as a second cooker to that, I'd actually get the pit barrel. The pit barrel is at a great price point, does fantastic low and slow. And with those two barbecues, the kettle and the pit barrel cooker, you can cook anything, and you can create the most amazing barbecue and the most amazing flavors. It's not too difficult to actually manage and look after, and I can highly recommend both of those. We use both of those at home. I bought them for my son, but I actually use them more than what he does now. They're absolutely amazing. So as a starting point, they are a great place to start. And then once you've got those, then you can start to move up and decide try different types of barbecue once you know that you've actually got the bug. But as a starting point, get a Weber Kettle and then maybe add a pit barrel to it as well. And I don't think you can go wrong. So I'll also go through and I'll explain to you the different types of barbecues I've actually bought and the reasons why I've actually bought them. So to start with, after I got rid of my first gas grill, I bought a Yoda YS640 pellet grill. And the reason for that was really simple. I wanted something that was set and forget. Something that I could leave cooking a brisket overnight for 10, 12 hours and didn't have to tend it, didn't have to worry about it, just wanted to get fantastic barbecue. And when you're starting, you don't really want to have really bad cooks where you destroy, beautiful cuts of brisket or beautiful pork butts. You want really good food coming off the barbecue right from day one. And with that pellet grill, I found I was getting fantastic barbecue. I ended up using it in competitions, and it can do everything I wanted it to. So it was a brilliant place to start, really easy to use, and it allowed me to have those nights sleep that I didn't want to have by having to tend and worry about temperature and pit control. The next barbecue I bought was a Komodo Kamado. Now these things are incredibly expensive, but they are over-engineered, they are stunning to look at, they are a work of art for the garden, but then as an actual cooking implement, they have different layers of cooking. I can cook on about 6 or 7 layers when I'm actually grilling at different heights, which means I can get 900 degrees F right over the coals, up to 400 or 500 degrees F up at the top, and I can change the temperature so well, and it holds the temperature so well. Unbelievable cooker, does brilliant low and slow as well. And again, you can control the amount of smoke flavor that you want in your food. So I loved this, my wife fell in love with it, and we bought it, and it's the best barbecue I've ever had. If I ended up on a desert island and I only took one barbecue with me, it would be a Komodo Kamado. I've enjoyed it that much that I've just recently sold my 23-inch Ultimate and I've bought a 32-inch. The 32-inch is in the garage at the moment and I'm waiting until we move house later in the year before I actually get it out and start using it. But it is the most wonderful barbecue you can get. I highly recommend them, but geez, they're very, very, very expensive. The next barbecue I bought was a Primo XL. Again, you can watch a video. I've done a video on the Yoda, which you can look at the top, and it'll show you about the Yoda. I've done a review of the Yoda, but I've also done a review of the Primo XL. The Primo XL I initially bought for competitions. I wanted a Kamado type cooker. I needed something that could do brisket and pulled pork, something that could grill, something that had 2 zones on it, and because the XL, the Oval XL, is an oval shape, it is great for 2-zone cooking. It's 23 inches, so it's really good for putting a full pack of brisket on there. I looked at different types of barbecue. I looked at the Kamado Joe and I looked at the Primo XL. I preferred the shape of the Primo XL. I preferred that the Primo XL was made in America and not made in China. And it's just been a great cooker. So I still use that now, and I've still got the Primo XL. And so that's probably the 3rd barbecue that I actually bought and used it for competitions. And I actually won some, I think I won 2 competitions, ribs, 1st place in 2 competitions with a Primo XL as well. So the next barbecue I bought was a Stumps gravity fed smoker, the classic. I mainly bought it for competitions. And the reasons I bought it was, had a massive real estate, so I could put 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10 briskets in there. So a number of briskets and pulled pork. I could also put full pans in there if I wanted to cook in full-size foil pans. Great temperature control because it's so well insulated. It could stay within 1 degree F if I use things like a BBQ Guru to control the temperature. It would cook for over 12 hours, fully loaded. I think that was about 15 hours actually, it could actually cook for without having to put any more briquettes into it, which was brilliant. Also, it was really good for being able to adjust the smoke flavour. So I could put more or less wood chunks into the ash box at the bottom, and that then changed the actual way it cooked and the amount of smoke that got in. There's a review on my channel for the Stumps Classic and also for the Stumps Junior. If you also look on the channel, you will also see videos for video reviews for the Primo XL, and you will also see videos for the Yoda YS640 as well. So just have a look up at the top and you should see some of those links for those videos. So the next barbecue I bought was a pit barrel cooker. There was special on at Costco that come down in Australia to an absolutely brilliant price. I think there was 300 Australian dollars. And I thought, right, I've got to try and get one of these and see what they're like. So I bought it for my son. You just set the temperature once, so you don't have to mess around and adjust the temperature. It can cook a full brisket, and it cooks some of the best briskets that I've ever done. You can also hang in there 8 racks of ribs. So it's an absolute rib machine. You don't have to wrap them. You don't need to do anything. Really good support online. So if you go online onto the Pit Barrel Cookers website, you can see lots of different videos of doing different types of cuts of meat, and it is incredibly versatile. So I can really highly recommend getting the Pit Barrel Cooker, and it's at a great price point. The next one we bought was a Weber Kettle, again, which was for my son, and it was to help him with to learn about things like fire control and heat management. And he has loved it. It has been so much better than, he had an old gas grill, and it's been so much better than that and so versatile. It can do hot and fast, it can do low and slow. We've added accessories to it, grill grates, the slow and sear has been added to it as well, and it cooks brilliant food. So the Weber Kettle has been amazing, so we've been over the moon. So we've got a lot of different types of cookers. We've got very expensive cookers and very cheap cookers. We probably use the Weber grill and the Pit Barrel the most, more than anything else we cook in. And they're the cheapest, which is amazing. So if you're starting and just starting at the beginning, I highly recommend that you get those 2 barbecues. I don't think you can go wrong. You're going to really enjoy yourself and you're going to produce some absolutely amazing barbecue. So make sure when you go in to buy a barbecue, you've actually sat down and you've thought about those questions before you go in to buy a barbecue. Don't go into there not knowing what you want. Understand what you want to cook. Do you want to cook low and slow, hot and fast, or both? What's your budget? Understand what your budget is, because that is so important, knowing what your budget is. Understand if you're happy to do a lot of work on the pit and temperature management, or you want it to be easy. Do you want to do low and slow overnight, or do you want to and have sleep, or do you want to do low and slow overnight and have to feed the pit every 30 minutes? So think about all of these questions before you decide which barbecue you're actually going to go for. What I've also added to the end of this video is a little table. And on this table, I've tried to give a rating for different aspects of each of those types of barbecue. So in there, I've looked at how good are the barbecues for grilling hot and fast, how good are the barbecues for grilling low and slow, how easy are they to use in terms of things like pit management and hands-on, how hands-on do you have to get with them, and what's the price point. And for each of them, I've scored between 1 star and 5 stars. So the main barbecues I've gone through are things like the Weber Kettle, I've gone through the pit barrel, the bullets, I've gone through the Kamados, I've gone through pellet grills, I've also looked at cabinet smokers. In there, I've also looked at gravity fed and also offsets. So it's a real nice, easy, ready reckoner to help you make your decisions and base your decisions on. So if you go through something like the Weber Kettle, as you can see on the actual matrix, I've given it 4 stars for hot and fast. And the only reason I've marked it down by a star on there is because you don't have height control on there. But that's the only reason. You can do 2-zone, so you can do direct and indirect, and you can get incredibly hot temperatures on there. You can add accessories such as grill grates to really get fantastic char marks. We use them in competitions. So I've scored that as 4 stars. When you look at it for a low and slow, I've scored it as 3. You can do ribs, you can do pulled pork, you can do brisket, but there's a bit more work involved. You know, you've got to move meat around, you've got to create a snake method. So there's more work involved in doing the low and slow, so that's a 3 star. Ease is a 3 star again. You know, you've got to keep maintaining the temperature. You can't put any type of guru on there, or you can, but it's not easy. So you've got to mess around with the temperature a little bit more, but it's pretty easy to use. And then I've given it 5 star for the price, because the price is absolutely fantastic. So it's a great place to start. So I've gone through each of those different types of barbecue and I've given them a scoring and a rating. Now, some of you are not going to agree with everything that I've put on there, and that's okay, I don't mind that. But that's my thoughts and views. I've tried nearly every one of these barbecues. I can honestly say the only 2 that I've not really tried, I've never really cooked on an offset myself, but I've seen the work that all my friends who were cooking in competitions put into that. And I've also not used a Weber Smoky Mountain. Both of those I've actually won in competitions and sold them both. So I had a Yoda offset and I had a Pro Q XL, and I sold both of them because they didn't really fit into what I was doing. But all the other barbecues I've actually tried myself, so I've got real experience with them. So I do know what they are like to cook on. So I hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. And please subscribe to the channel, because that's how I know that you're actually enjoying the content, and it encourages me to make more and more videos. Hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks a lot.